Welcome to the station, Kentucky's Conservative Outpost, the only program in the state of Kentucky and the city of Louisville that deals with news and politics and commentary on from a conservative perspective. And truth be known, it's a little bit more of a conservative populist perspective, because if you're a conservative, you follow these things, you're in that world, you know there's this battle going on between the conservative populists like Trump versus the establishment wing like McConnell, and I'm more populist than establishment. But you know what? I love them all. I love McConnell. He's been my senator for years, it is what it is. And so anyway, welcome to the show. And so tonight we have a great program, and it's going to be on. We're going to revisit a topic that we revisited a few weeks ago with State Representative Kevin Bratcher. We had a show with him about the topic of how Jefferson County could now see cities forming in the county's areas outside of the old traditional Louisville boundaries, like, for example, Okolona, for example. There's now a law that was passed by the state assembly to allow cities to form by popular vote. And they really specifically targeted Louisville because they thought that Louisville metro government had a problem. And maybe we can address it by allowing folks to develop their own cities. So it's a fascinating topic. It's apropos for what Louisville's dealing with all the crime and political issues we've had these past few years with the riots and the way and funding and lack of police. But tell you what. Let's go to this story from HAS. They set this up better than anybody, so here we go.
Jefferson County merged governments in 2003 to put a stop to all that. But the bill in question now would allow areas within Jefferson County to form brand new cities or merge with existing ones. 2/3 of residents within one area would need to vote in favor of getting that completed.
Right now, WHAS 11's political reporter Rachel Droz is sharing why the public safety is at the middle of this debate.
For the first time in decades, new cities could be formed in Jefferson County, and existing ones could be expanded.
Those supporting this measure say they don't feel metro government provides services equally.
22 years ago, merger came along where it was good for some places and some things. As it was working through, we began to realize that there were areas in the city that were not receiving the services that they feel like they paid for.
Public safety is another big concern.
Not only has Louisville been an engine for growth, which I will agree it has been to an extent, but it's also been an engine for crime in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, due, in my opinion, to a lot of poor leadership and poor decisions, which essentially let criminals run wild.
This line shows the sharp rise in homicides and assaults being investigated by LMPD. With the shortage of officers, some feel LMPD doesn't have the manpower to respond to calls throughout the entire county, and think they'd be better off if they could have their own police forces.
Why should Fern Creek or Valley Station have to beg Metro Council to do something that they should already be doing? They are not policing our areas.
But Mayor Greg Fisher says passing this bill will unwind progress metro government has allowed Louisville to make and could seriously impact the metro's tax revenue.
Beyond the confusion and frustration for businesses looking to locate or grow in Louisville, potentially could leave a $50 million hole in revenue to cover all the services that every resident of Louisville relies on. 911 services, public safety, infrastructure maintenance, libraries, codes and regulations, correction parks, and more. It represents almost 9% of the entire city's general fund.
This bill passed out of a Senate committee on a party line vote and now heads to the full Senate for consideration. In Louisville, Rachel Droz, WHAS 11 on your side.
All right, so this bill, stopping that, closing that. So this bill was passed. So the story was done before the bill was passed, but it has passed. So this can now happen. And so in other words, if you live in an area just outside of the city limits of J-Town, for example, say you live in Fern Creek, which is next to J-Town, you could potentially have a vote where you could join J-Town and your neighborhood could be part of J-Town. Or if you're in Okolona or Valley Station and you wanted to form your own home rule city, you could have a vote. And I think if there's a 75% majority on that vote, then you could form your own city. Now, what does that do? Well, it basically creates a whole new governance system for that area, and you've got your own police force. You basically could look like J-Town. If anybody looked at just the success of Jeffersontown in our city, it would be nice to kind of have that throughout the rest of the county. And of course, you can say, well, J-Town's got the industrial park. That's where all their tax base comes from. But you know what? There's more than that. Just having government, having government closer to home. They care about your neighborhood because they actually live in your neighborhood, and that says a lot. So we want to talk about where that issue is right now, because I think it's getting some momentum, and I think there's some attention being given to it. And we have a special guest tonight, Jerry McGraw, with the McGraw Law Group. And Jerry is very involved in this process of seeing this happen, of developing home rule cities in Jefferson County. And so we want to invite Jerry on. So Jerry, tell us about this. First of all, who is Jerry McGraw? Why are you involved in this, and why does this interest you?
Well, it interests me because I've been involved in local government in Jefferson County and for many years. I came to Louisville in 1974 with the Army. I began graduate school at the University of Louisville and got a master's degree in justice administration. Started working on a PhD. Went to work for the police department as an emergency medical technician. And I'm an emergency medical technician today because of that. During the time that I was at U of L, I also was trying to do the PhD, couldn't do the residency because of work. So I picked up another master's degree in community development, which is basically, how do we help communities? How do we help the city of Louisville? How do we help our local communities get the services that they want and be best for our community? Sometime after that, before I retired from the police department, I went to law school, and I've been practicing law in Jefferson County now for 33 years. In 1990, I was elected to city council in Douglas Hills. I spent 14 years on council in Douglas Hills. So I became aware of the benefits that a small city can have for its local community. During this time, I have acquired rental properties. Some of it is in the Urban Services District. Some of it is outside of the Urban Services District. Some property that I own is in small cities. Some property that I own is in homeowners association areas. So I've got a pretty good feel for the differences as to whether you're in the Urban Services District or whether you're in a small city or you're in none of those. And that has brought my interest and concern. I think that the communities outside of the Urban Services District could be better served by having their own city operation, such as with Douglas Hills, J-Town, St. Matthews, Shively, and many others.
Yeah, well said. So this is happening. So we can now do this for the first time. If you get enough votes within an area to rally behind that, this could happen. And so I think that understanding is out there among folks who want to organize this, like yourself. And so what would be the benefits of doing this? If I lived in Okolona, and we wanted to create a city of Okolona, what's better? And then also, what are the downsides? I mean, would my taxes go up? But will I get better policing? Or, what are the trade-offs?
Well, my perception, my belief is that first, each community has to make those decisions for themselves. Okolona may say, we want a police department. Fern Creek may say, we don't want a police department. And there are options. There are things that can be done in each area. So my recommendation when I'm talking with people is that each community should set up study committees. And that study committee would then figure out what is best in their area. You don't have to have a police department if you don't want one. But one of the things that is a benefit in that regard is if you do have a city, you can enter into an interlocal contract with a location which does have a police department and have their police officers provide your police service. If you are not an incorporated area, you cannot enter into that interlocal contract. But there are just a lot of various things that can be done, but it needs to be patterned to the particular community. You ask about taxes. There is the probability that you would have an increase in taxes. But I'll tell you a little story. When I moved to Douglas Hills in 1988, I had been paying for sanitation garbage service in another area of Jefferson County on a quarterly basis. And when I moved to Douglas Hills, I found that actually my garbage bill from the prior location was very close to what I was paying in taxes, which was providing for the garbage, because Douglas Hills at that point, and they still do, I'm still involved with Douglas Hills doing their public safety at this point, but they are able to contract on a bulk contract situation for sanitation and waste hauling, which most of the places that I'm aware of that I have actual information that are doing that in homeowners associations and in small cities are able to get that sanitation, monthly sanitation collection for somewhere in the $16 to $17 per month per household, as compared to $21 to $23 in other areas. So there can be offsetting savings in things of that type. So there are a lot of different options, and you've got some time, and I've got a list over here.
That's great. Yeah. Well, so it sounds like there's a lot of variables of how you set one of these cities up, and also the variable, do you actually set up a new city, or do you just join another city? I mean, if I'm in a southeast Jefferson County and I'm close to J-Town, why not just join J-Town? And so that's an option as well, right?
Correct. And some areas have been doing that. I've recently talked with some people in a particular area. They decided they did not have the population to develop a city under the House Bill 314, which is now Kentucky Statute 67C.111. That statute requires 6,000 residents to be within the area that's going to be incorporated. Well, if an area doesn't have that type of incorporation, or that population rather, for incorporation purposes, they can go ahead and annex or be annexed by someone else. And I've recently talked with some people who didn't have the population, and they were interested in being annexed by the city of Middletown. That's something the petition is presented. I know several places have done that in J-Town, where they present to J-Town a request to be incorporated or annexed into J-Town, and ultimately, if they can work out the arrangements and a satisfactory situation for all parties, J-Town has incorporated some of those areas.
Wow, that's interesting. So you need 6,000 folks within your area in order to create a small city. Okay, so that helps you. So if you're in a very rural part of the county with just a few folks, you're not going to start a city, for 50 people. You have to, you're more likely that you'll be able to join. Now, do you have to be contiguously adjoined to a city to adjoin? Like, do I need to be bumping up next to J-Town in order for J-Town to absorb me, or can we do like a little, like we have a little part of J-Town in Valley Station?
Well, it's got to be contiguous.
Got to be contiguous. Okay, that makes sense.
Let me go back and cover a couple of things. One of the things with this particular legislation, when we merged in Jefferson County with the city of Louisville, we stopped the ability of areas to incorporate. The rest of the state can do so. Basically, what has happened with this bill is to say, okay, now, Jefferson County, if you're outside of the urban services district and outside any other already incorporated city and you want to incorporate, here are the conditions under which you can do it. And you do it basically the same thing that anyone else or any other area in the state can do it, except we do have to have 6,000 population. Now, if I may just touch base on, you've got to have a 6,000 population. But you have to have, and there is actually no vote on this. It's a petition type signature situation. So if you've got 6,000 people, you have to have 66% of those registered voters in that area sign the petition. So if you look at 6,000 people, how many of those are children? How many of them may be non-registered voters, et cetera? So you've got your population threshold you've got to cover, and then you look at, okay, how many registered voters are in this geographic area, and that's where you set your number of the 66% of the registered voters.
I see. Okay. All right. So it's very well thought out on how to do this. So I'm going to put this map up real quick. Guys, can you switch to this? This is a map of the urban services district. So everything in blue is what I believe is the old boundaries of Louisville prior to metro government expanding. So I may be wrong if that's, correct me if I'm wrong, Jerry, but I think that's right. And so everything outside of that is eligible to do this, or they're already a city like St. Matthews or Middletown or Jeffersontown. So, so if you live in these gray areas, which is most of the city really, or most of the population of the city, you could potentially be doing this. So, so I would encourage everyone to look at this very closely, because this could really change your quality of life. It could change the way you change the neighborhood, the way you operate, the way, and specifically policing. For example, there's a lot of complaints. You saw this in the story earlier that, you know, Fern Creek's not getting any policing like it needs to. And Kevin Bratcher mentioned that in the last program. So one of the reasons he voted for this bill is he had some friends that were carjacked in Fern Creek, and the police just, you know, didn't have the resources to really deal with those sort of issues in that area. And so that's just not right. You know, and so and especially when, let's face it, the bulk of the tax revenue for the city is coming from, you know, property taxes and income taxes from folks that live in these areas. So, but yet they're not getting the services they need. So, and obviously that might take away some of those funds from the core of the city, but there has to be a way to deal with this. There has to be a way to balance those needs out. So, and maybe this is the way to do it, and have a real conversation with Metro government about this. So, but Jerry, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, will this take money away from the core of the city? And, you know, what's the downside of that? Is it, maybe that's a good thing? Maybe they're overspending money. Maybe they don't know how to spend it. And will it help people that live in these areas that are underserved? You know, I don't know.
Well, I would say first, the prior administration has tried to scare people in that regard. I don't find any validity in most of that statement. If we're paying property taxes on our real estate, on our cars or our trucks and automobiles and things of that type, we still have the occupation tax that goes into Metro government. That all still goes into Metro government. Not one penny of that, if I ever understood, would be diverted from Metro government for those purposes. Now, we pay, if you look on your homeowner's insurance or your life insurance or your automobile insurance, you will find a local premium tax on that. That amount of tax, which we are already paying, if we're not in a small city, does go to Metro government. The small city could, and ones, I think all of the ones, as far as I know, all of the cities that we currently have the option of diverting that tax back from Metro into their local coffers in order to provide services for their residents. But as far as occupation tax, property tax, real estate tax, all of those would continue. There should be no difference. Mayor Fisher, in the article or the presentation you had on the clip a minute ago, was talking about $50 million in deficit. Have no idea where he came up with that number, and I do not consider it valid. He has also expressed that if we were to, and he likes to use terms like, or he'd like to, hopefully he's not going to be into this fight anymore, but he used terms like we were succeeding from Metro and we were going to damage Metro. I don't see that as happening. We're not succeeding. We will still be part of Metro government. We'll still be paying our taxes into Metro government. Louisville downtown is the economic engine for this area, but we're paying an awful lot of taxes out in the outlying areas to keep that economic energy going. We will continue to do that. We'll continue to provide those revenues, et cetera, for the downtown. What we're looking at, well, one of the things that I'm starting to go to, he has mentioned that by backing out of Metro, which is what he says, and that's not going to happen, we would be taking federal funding away. Well, in my master's degree in community development, one of the things that I learned is most federal funding either comes direct through the state or it comes through KIPTA, a regional planning area. And KIPTA would include areas in southern Indiana, would include some of the surrounding counties, And that federal money comes in to that geographic area for something such as maybe the helicopters that the police department uses and so many different things. I have been assured that not one penny would be changed in where it's going based upon small cities, areas incorporating into home rule cities. So I don't see any significant financial disadvantage to the city of Louisville, to Metro Louisville, that is. And that money that would be there is money that would be able to provide the services that we're feeling neglected from in some of the outlying areas, such as law enforcement, if a small city decided they wanted to develop a police department.
So yeah, that's a great solution. Yeah, it's a great solution. So if I live in an area like say Okolona starts its own city, just like J-Town, and has its own police force and its own mayor and all that, they would still have a councilman, a metro government councilman that represents their area. Correct, and that would still be on Metro Council. Okay, so you're not succeeding from Metro government. You're still part of Metro government. It's just you now have another city within the city in a sense that's more that meets your needs because they're closer to you. So another example a lot of people bring up is the city of Buckhead out of Atlanta. So there's been it's a big conversation in the news in the past few months, how Buckhead, which is a very affluent area just north of Atlanta, is, and I think in a sense, succeeding and breaking away from the city of Atlanta. So I think that example is a little bit more of a succession model, right, where they're just taking all their toys and going home, right? Is that am I mistaking that, or are they still part of the city of Atlanta if they did that?
That familiar with that situation.
You're not? Okay. Well, I think it's a little different, and I think it would be more of what the mayor is claiming this movement is trying to do, but it's not. So, okay, well, that's interesting. So, okay, well, this is great. So, all right, so say I live in one of these areas. What do I do to get involved in this and learn more about the options? Because, like you said, there's various ways you could set these home rule cities up. You could have your own police department, or you could borrow somebody else's police department, or just not have a police department at all, or rely on Metro government, or you could have a garbage service, you could have not garbage. There's all these lots of things you can do. So how does someone learn about the options of how they could set up one of these cities, and where can they get involved, and who's leading the effort on some of these fronts? And before you answer, we're going to go to a break. So come right back. You have the answers to those questions. You're watching the station. And welcome back to the station. I'm Tom Fawbush. I'm your host, and we're discussing a pretty interesting topic tonight. It is the creating of home rule cities in Jefferson County. Outside of the traditional city limits of Louisville. So, for example, if you live in Valley Station or Okolona or Fern Creek and you wanted to create your own city of Fern Creek, there's now a law that was passed by the state legislature that allows you to do that. And there's some momentum to see that happen because there's quite a lot of folks that are just not real happy with the way Metro government has I guess, treated them or how it's evolved into a system that doesn't serve their needs very well. And so there's a way to address that. And let me just get to brass tacks a little bit. People are a little bit upset about how the city has dealt with crime. Okay, let's just get down to it. Let's just get real. This is between you and me. We're watching TV. The city really blew it the past few years with crime. And you look at the murder rates, you look at the carjackings everywhere. You look at, I just had my truck stolen from this TV station last weekend, all right? I'm a victim of crime right here, all right? And so this didn't happen, 3 or 4 years ago. The city is really in a mess. And I think a lot of it has to do with the policies and decisions at Metro government. And folks in the county that pay most of the taxes in the city, they're not getting served very well, and so there's a good reason to let's try to reconfigure things. Let's create some home rule cities that are closer to my home, that are maybe more responsive to my needs, and that can maybe address these problems, such as crime. And that crime is just one of many issues, but that's a big one. And so, and especially after this recent election, there's a lot of people very disappointed in the outcome of that election. We thought we had a great local mayor in Bill Durff that was had a great track record in dealing with a lot of these issues, and he didn't win. So people are like, well, goodness, are we doomed to this sort of bad, politics of Louisville forever? And maybe not. Maybe this is a way to deal with, to try to address some of these issues and put healthy pressure on Metro government to do the right thing as well. So to that point, to that issue, we have a great guest with us tonight, Jerry McGraw with McGraw Law Group, who's involved in taking the lead on really getting this movement going in our county. So the last segment we talked about why it's happening. Let's talk about what's happening. So Jerry, what is happening right now on that front? I think there are some meetings happening. There's some petitions maybe starting, or what is happening along the lines of this coming together?
Well, at this point, I'm not aware of any petitions because it's another year and a half before a petition could actually be filed. What's going on at this point is I have been having some meetings, and I know some other people have been doing the same, where we're actually meeting with local residents who are interested in looking at the concept of incorporation. I have met previously with two different groups in the eastern part of Jefferson County. And I've taken the position that I will help guide them, help talk with them on things to consider whether they should incorporate or not. I know that Bonnie Jung, who is the president of the League of Cities, and she's also the mayor of Douglas Hills, has been doing several discussions with people throughout the county. I am aware that there are some people in the Fairdale area, in the Pleasure Ridge Park area, in the Valley Station area, Okolona, and Fern Creek areas who are also interested in doing something along these lines. So it's a matter at this point of the grassroots residents in these areas talking with other people, beginning the process of studying, okay, if we were to incorporate, what area would we incorporate? Because we have to have an area large enough to have the 6,000 population. But then if we do incorporate, what are we going to do? What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? What are the benefits? What are we actually going to have to accomplish in the process? And that's where we're at now, is that study situation, because we've got a year and a half before we can actually begin that process.
Okay. So is there a online Facebook page or a website or is there anything happening where someone who's interested in the topic could either connect with other like-minded individuals or just learn more about the topic? Or, are we even at that phase yet? It seems like there ought to be a Facebook group that says, hey, form Louisville or form Okolona, City of Okolona, subscribe here or something. Anything like that you're aware of?
I'm not aware of anything like that. What I have been doing is every once in a while, I will simply get a phone call or an email from someone about, can you help us? Can you come? And one area said, well, you just come and give us a brain dump on everything you can think about with our incorporating. And I did do that. And it took about 2 hours and 15 minutes to get through that process of just talking about all of the variations, the things that can be done, benefits, some of the things that are going to have to be accomplished. They're going to be a real challenge. But that's where we're at, is talking, getting people interested. I'm not aware of any actual Facebook group or anything of that type that's available at this point.
Okay, well, that maybe that's an opportunity for this program. So if you're watching this program and you have social media accounts, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, maybe, or YouTube as well. Go to this video, share it on your Facebook page, and maybe we just start a conversation right on our forums under our videos, and let's just get this rolling. I think there's a demand for this. People see the need, and we just need to come together and figure out how to do it. And then we can vote for Jerry for mayor. Jerry for mayor of Okolona. I'm Jerry McGraw. You got my vote. So
I appreciate that. I don't live in Okolona is the first thing, and right at this point, I'm just interested in trying to help the community.
Well, I'm just teasing with you, but still, that would be, yeah. But obviously, you're a great resource as well. So if you are really at a point where you have a interest in maybe developing this in your area, I think you should reach out to Jerry, and we'll put up Jerry's information on the screen here during the program, so you can reach out. And so. Okay, so there are just conversations going on, and so we've got another year and a half before even a petition could be circulated. So, but those conversations are important because it takes about a year and a half to get anything done in politics. So you need to be talking now. And we need to be reaching out to one another and figure out, how do we do this, and talk to Jerry and get the download. Other topic is well, I think I answered my other question. So, are there anybody that you're aware of specifically besides yourself? So Bonnie's involved with the Douglas Hills. They can reach out to you, and then of course we're going to put up some Facebook information as well, and then. But why really do this? And Jerry, why would you see a homeowner and PRP, and what would really move them to want to do this tomorrow or even next year? Is it just crime, or is it taxes, or is it why get involved in this topic? Is it just something that's really going to change their life, or is it just a creating a political body within your neighborhood just for talking about the dog catcher? I mean, why really do this? Is there real a benefit for someone's life on a day-to-day basis?
Well, personally, I'm of the opinion it would help in the individual communities for maybe not one individual's life, but in the community. One of the things that became prevalent to me, or evident to me, I guess, in 1974 when I first came to Louisville, I lived over in the Ducat Outer Loop area. And I kept hearing people, whether it was in Fairdale or it was in PRP or it was down in Valley Station, talking about being neglected by local government, that nobody ever fixed the potholes in their area, things of that type. And I think that concept has just been exacerbated tremendously in the last 12 years under the prior administration. When we look at situations where certain areas have been very neglected, personal opinion, by the administration, and I'm going to give an example, just as one basic example. In the east end of Jefferson County, we're paying the same property taxes that we should be paying for everybody, same tax rates that everybody pays. That property tax should be providing certain services for everybody. But under the Fisher administration, Metro Emergency Medical Services quit sending ambulances to the east end of Jefferson County, and the Middletown Anchorage fire departments, well, Anchorage had a certificate of need for an ambulance. Those two fire departments picked up the slack by providing ambulances, so that now the people who are in that Middletown Anchorage area not only pay Metro government tax base, which should be providing our ambulance service, but we now have a higher tax rate on the Middletown Anchorage Fire District, which is to cover the ambulance that actually would come to my home if I needed to call for an ambulance. So we look at those types of things that are there. When we put all this together, there are a number of issues that people should consider, one of which is local control. If I have local control over my city, then I can fix my own potholes. I don't have to beg Metro government to come out and fix my pothole, and so many other things. One of the things that is bothering a number of people in the eastern part of Jefferson County is the continuous development of apartment complexes. 300 and 400 apartments in a complex. If you've got a space of land the size of a postage stamp, you can build apartments on it, it seems. Well, the infrastructure is not being developed to keep up with those complexes, with those developments. If a area has zoning, is a small city, if they're a home rule city, they will have the final zoning authority in that area. so that they have some influence over that apartment complex that's going into their area. Do they have the sewers, the roads, the water lines, all of the infrastructure that's needed? When you look at so many other things, code enforcement, each of these home rule cities could have their own code enforcement board where they can be doing the inspections in their area. They can be enforcing building codes in their area, where at this point, we strictly rely upon metro government for anything along those lines, and we may or may not get those services from metro government. If you have a home rule city, you can establish your own local ordinances so that you can enforce those ordinances, probably through the code enforcement board or through however you have your law enforcement set up. One of the benefits from being an incorporated city is that you would get road funds. In other words, if you are a home rule city, the state is going to take some of that tax money that you pay every time you fill up your vehicle with gasoline, and they're going to send it back to you and your home rule city. That's how your home rule city can manage your own highways instead of having to ask the mayor, will you come and fix our streets? I've heard many legislators talk about that the prior mayor never brought a request to Frankfurt for road funds for anything outside of the Watterson Expressway. We were neglected. Many areas were neglected. State might do something, but Metro apparently neglected by not asking for that kind of money. So there are just so many facets to this whole process.
Wow. Yeah, that you really nailed it there. In my area, I live in the Fern Creek area. The development of apartment complexes, like you said, is just getting way out of hand. And it's you're right. The infrastructure cannot keep up. I mean, that Bardstown Road right there in front of the Kroger and near the Gene Snyder, it's the busiest spot in the city. There's more cars that drive through there than any spot in town. It's more than downtown Louisville. There's way too much going on, and yet they're building all up and down Bardstown Road all these apartment complexes. The infrastructure cannot keep up. So just the chaotic zoning that's going on in the county is a wonderful reason to do this right there, because you don't see this in areas like, J-Town's got a pretty good handle on their zoning. They're not going to let all that happen, and right there, that's if nothing else. Just keep metro government policing whatever, but just get control of your zoning, and you can have a better neighborhood. I know people that are just ready to leave that area because it's so chaotic. It's so there's growth that's, I guess, good, and commercial growth. It's there's some nice developments, business developments going there, but just the density of people and what was once just a normal suburb, it's turning into a downtown city effect in a suburb, and it's like, well, and on top of that, homelessness and drug use. We got homeless camps in the suburbs, and what, and then of course you call the police about, well, it's not a crime worth really dealing with. We've got to deal with, we're down 300 officers. Well, I'm sorry, there's a guy sleeping right outside of my fence behind my house, and this isn't down on the waterfront in downtown Louisville in some abandoned building. This is my home in Fern Creek, and so. Yeah, so I can go on a soapbox about that as well, but the zoning issue is spot on, and so I guess that's happening in other areas in the East End as well, where apartment buildings are just popping up left and right.
Yes, it is, and you look at an area, there's an apartment complex that went in near the Target on Shelbyville Road, near Middletown, 300 and some units. You go further east towards Shelby County, and that's something that has people in the Eastwood area scared tremendously because of what development is going on there, and they have no input into that process. Yeah. No input or no control. Yeah. So, well, there we go, folks. So this is America. We don't have to sit back and deal with bad politics. We're people that are self-ruled. We have democracy. This is a
a situation where we have some control. We just need to step up and let our voices be heard and engage on this topic. Connect with gentlemen like Jerry, learn how this is being done. Let's try to just organically, through the grassroots, talk to one another, figure out how to address this issue. Trust me, some things are going to develop. I'm sure there's going to be some groups here that will develop that. So pay attention to what's happening, support it, and I'm sure in a year and a half or so, when these petitions come out, sign them, and then it's going to be on a ballot. I'm sure a couple years from now, and get out and vote. We're going to need you to vote. So Jerry,
if I could interject right there will be no vote on it. Oh. It is, the petition is filed with Metro government under this new bill. If 66% of the registered voters in the area have signed that petition, then Metro Council has no choice. Oh. They have to, well, basically it's approved regardless of what they want to do.
Okay.
66% of registered voters, but then it does have to have a petition going into circuit court, and they have to outline to the circuit judge the reasons for the city and the fact that they've got the petition, things of that type, and then the circuit judge issues an order establishing the city.
Well, that's wonderful. So you just a petition. So, all right, well, when folks come to your door in 2 years from now, knocking your door saying, would you sign this petition so we can create the city of PRP or create the city of Okolona, be very willing to do that. And so it's called petition harvesting. So it's not vote harvesting, it's petition harvesting. So watch these harvesters come to your door. So anyway, well, Jerry, thanks for your time tonight, and keep us updated on this. We want to stay in touch and figure out how we can help the movement. We're supportive of the movement. I think it'd be a great thing for this county and the city, and so anything we can do on our side, let us know. And so Jerry McGraw, with McGraw Law, if you have a group of people or just yourself, you want to reach out to Jerry about this topic and learn more, he's willing to help guide you on that. And so, well, very good. Well, you're watching the station, Kentucky's Conservative Outpost, and we'll be back right after this.